Hello, and welcome in our new channel, a video podcast channel about tennis. And I'm super happy that in this first video I have my very good friend here, Zibu. And thank you so much, Zibu. I know you're very busy. I know you're very busy, man.
Oh, no problem. It's a pleasure being on the very first one. I mean, what an honor. It couldn't.
No,
I'm
you.
super blessed to have you reach out to me and as good friends and old friends, immigrants who first came to the U.S. back in '96, if I recall, college teammates. It's like a great reunion.
Yeah. It's fun years, man, and fun to think about all these memories. And we're gonna think about some of these memories today. But also, I'm doing this to give some content out there for tennis that people can value and maybe learn a few things by talking to different people. And in the same time, I'm
Absolutely.
becoming better too. I'll become it better too. So that's
Oh,
the idea of this
pleasure.
YouTube channel, and let's hope it
And,
goes
and,
well.
yeah, likewise. I mean, conversations are always eye-opening and get you to
Mhm.
think. So it's a great experience for me and learning experience. Yeah, likewise.
I'm very, very happy to talk to you first, not only because you're a very good friend and teammate and all the stuff we said earlier, but also because you're working basically with junior players and also you're working them on clay courts, and also you're traveling and you're going to tournaments and all this stuff. And we'll have a lot of things to say
Mhm.
today. And I said the clay court because, as I told you earlier, in America, in the USA, everybody's practicing in hard courts. And
Yeah.
uh, later in this episode, we're going to talk why it's better to practice in clay. But first of all, let's start with your story. Everybody that comes here gets like, I don't know, a few minutes to say the tennis story. What is your tennis story? You grew up in
Uh,
Zimbabwe, you
yes.
played
Yeah.
tennis, and what happened?
Well, grew up in Zimbabwe. I was a football player, soccer player, and I was fortunate at a certain age where I was recognized as a potential, professional soccer player, and I was too young to move to England to go join club football.
Hmm.
That kind of was, broke my heart to some extent. And my dad thought I was obviously too young to go to the UK, and I don't think the family was prepared to move to support such an endeavor. My dad was a tennis advocate. He had picked up tennis in his later years, and he loved the game, and he looked at the sport of tennis as a gentleman's sport, as a sport that could be great for networking, could be great for mental resilience, and
Hmm.
a sport that you could play for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
and you can meet people from different careers.
Hmm.
And I have him to thank as he channeled my brother and I to pick up the sport and encourage us. And when we did do that, we got extreme support from him. And coming from a country like Zimbabwe, and when I look back at where I am today, um, I recall, I'll do well. I started late, but so do many of my peers. And I rose up to the ranks. I got to the number one player in the country, I believe under 14. I picked up the racket at age 10. Under 12 was tough, but I was within the top 10. Under 14, I was now the number one country. 16, I was number one in the nation. But I
Hmm.
always felt at the time that things were not, I wasn't getting the best, I wasn't getting a fair card. I felt like
Hmm.
some of my peers who I would beat would be nominated into the national team, would be
Mm.
awarded tennis rackets, for example, and I would be left out. But when I look at it now, it was a blessing in disguise. First, because it taught me to fight for everything. I never received anything for free, basically. Not to say that if I was the best player in the nation and I didn't get a grant from the the Tennis Federation or sponsorship or rackets that meant it was really for free.
This
But
is so important. This is so amazing because I have some notes down to talk about later, and you already start saying the things I had in my mind, which is how tough it is for a tennis player, for a junior tennis player,
yes,
to have the money, economically, how hard it
yes,
is to compete with everybody else because this is what
that's
you're
right.
doing. Also, tennis is not good only because you might get a scholarship or you might win some money as a professional player or you might be a tennis coach. It does a
Absolutely.
lot of other things, and you
Yes.
already are talking
Oh,
about it.
oh wow! You read my mind. That's why we were a dynamic
Amazing.
duo. There's a reason
Yeah.
why we won our doubles matches, right, partner?
That's true. That's true.
And as I was saying, so those things were molding me. Subconsciously, regardless, I felt like I had to fight for everything. And tennis is a competitive sport, on the court and off the court.
Hmm.
With that in mind, I realized that a big part of my uh, personal attributes today come from that early stages of uh, feeling left out in national teams when I felt I belonged in the Davis Cup team.
Hmm.
My record spoke for itself, but still won't be nominated.
Hmm.
But when I look back to it, I was one of the few players who had an involved parent, right?
Hmm.
Uh, my dad supported me, so I was competing against other guys whose parents would not come to watch them play. And even if they did receive certain gestures from the federation, I had a relationship and a bond with my dad as I competed, which was important and which set a solid foundation, a mentorship that allowed me to realize opportunity in areas most people will fumble. And
Oh,
as you would know, when I came to the United States, I got into a taxi ride. We went to
I
Tyler
remember the
Junior
day.
College, right? And over 90% of my entire budget for the semester was used because I needed to catch a taxi from Dallas to Tyler, Texas. I could have got an airplane ticket, or could have caught
Super.
a bus. I could have done better research at the time, but we did not have access to computers. We did not
Of
have,
course.
there was no iPhones. These things were, the administration board gives you a book and it looks like the map is simple. Point A to point B,
I,
just
I
catch a
think
taxi.
I think 1996 it was the first year me and you and I think the other kids in the team too we started using the internet like
Absolutely.
for work and
Absolutely.
I think that was the
It,
year.
it, it was. And we went to computer class and we were looking at these
Yeah.
big Macintosh computers. We thought
Yes.
this was amazing. It was phenomenal. Those were the days. But at the same time, they were channeling and modeling us to, develop certain skills that till this day are the reasons why we have some level of success. Um,
Yes.
and a certain level of gratitude comes from those, a certain level of communication skills, ability to reach out for help and be of service
Mm-hmm.
to people. And as as of now, I've spent over a decade, close to about 15, actually 2 decades, developing a lot of tennis players, a lot of
Nice.
juniors, and some have gone professional. I've coached a few at the pro level too, but mainly really developing juniors to go to the best schools in the country. And a big part of it is those early years, being able to have Thanksgiving with team members and meeting potential team sponsors and doing those pro-ams and so forth and so on. And we've made lifelong friends. And whenever I look, all the most of our peers that we grew up with, they have a huge success in the background.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings us to today,
Mhm.
where you are in California, right?
Yes.
And
Yes,
you're
sir.
working full time as a tennis coach. You have your own court, as far as I
Yes.
know,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. So that's very interesting. Zibu, some of those things I didn't know. I didn't know you were going for a football. You want to go for a football
Never.
club in UK. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that. That's an amazing story. But this is something for everybody that is watching right now to learn that in life you're gonna fail. There's no way things are gonna always go 100% with you. You're gonna
Absolutely.
have difficulties. You're gonna fail, and the more times you fail, the stronger you become. And that's like
Absolutely.
as a tennis player and as a person. But tennis
Absolutely.
helps you see all this. That's why I think it's an amazing sport, because not only gives you the opportunity to work out, okay, to be fit, to have a
Yes.
sport for a lifetime. Like
Yes.
you
Yes.
cannot play football when you're 70. You're not gonna find.
Absolutely. Those knees, you
So
can't build a
yeah,
team. You can't find 11, 22 old men to come and run with you. But you have a chance of
exactly.
finding one old guy who can, chase the ball with you,
Exactly.
Exactly.
So it gives you that sport of us gives you so much. But okay, we said enough of this, I think. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you a few questions. First of all, I want you to tell me, you're working with juniors. You're probably working with juniors only, that they play only tournament players, or do you develop them
Yes.
from before?
Yes. I'm working with juniors, um, mainly from age range. The youngest player I'm working with is age 11.
Mm-hmm.
Age 11. I've actually helped somebody age 9, but I'm around the age 11 is the youngest. But most of my juniors are from age 13 to
Mm-hmm.
age 18.
And they're
And
all tournament players.
they're all tournament players. They're
Okay.
playing from ranging from the national level in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And when they reach a certain level, I transfer them to ITF players. And next year, I should have 3 players playing in the Grand Slams.
Oh
Four,
wow, that's
actually,
good.
four, yeah,
For
4. Yeah.
That's amazing. Good luck, Zubu. I want you in that level. Okay, so we are not in the intermediate level. We're
Mm-hmm.
not like fixing technique. I mean, we are, but we're
Mm-hmm.
not like showing players how to play. But we are in the tournament level player for a junior. What do you think is the most important thing to train? I know you are as good as your worst shot as the worst thing you're doing as a tennis player, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what is your where is your thought when you train a player? What
Mm-hmm.
do you want to see from them doing better?
I mean, I really look at the criteria. First, I still go back to the fundamentals. I look at the mechanics, technical part, which
Mm-hmm.
is something I tend to inherit. I get to inherit certain players who feel like they've gone as far as they've gone with a certain coach, and now they need to take the game to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
But I still need to make sure that the fundamentals, the technical base is solid enough to compete and to have the good tactical approach when you go to the next level. Also, the ability for the player to develop a more open mindset, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of mental toughness is going to be a big issue. And that training is not just for the player, but it's also for the parent. As you know, here in the United States, the logistics are slightly different. We have such a huge country. The federation is only involved, as I would say, at extremely high level or more as a ceremonial scenario. Most
Mm-hmm.
players really have to come from the lower level, play national events, and eventually, when you're top 5 or top 3 in the country, only do you get Team USA,
Mm-hmm.
gear to go represent Junior Davis Cup or Junior
Yeah.
Fed Cup and so forth. So most athletes don't get the opportunity to get there. But as I groom players to get to that level, I really look at uh, the individual. The individual, what are their strengths in
Mm-hmm.
terms of characteristics? I also try to adapt to their personality. I also ask questions about their goals. What are their dreams? What are they trying to achieve? Some want to go professional. Some want to go to go to a college. Mainly, most of them want to go to good universities. And we also have to be aware that, they travel to tournaments with their parents. And so when I'm coaching, since I'm now working with a lot of players, I work on training the parent also on what to look for, how to behave when their child is competing, and really get them to understand that their child is going to make 2,000 to 5,000 errors before they master a skill. You understand it logically. The kid understands it logically, but to master a skill and to be able to execute it requires a lot of reps under pressure and in different scenarios before the player can really execute at a high rate. And that's when they're considered the high performance athlete. But it's a journey, and I look at every player as a journey with different attributes, and I tailor it mainly to the player. I also hold groups. When I hold groups, I'm working on fundamentals and having weekly goals of what mental attributes we want to, achieve. But as far as what I do, a lot of privates, which I really personalize the training for the player, and it depends with the age range. You could be I give an example. You could be a 13-year-old blue chip or rated top 10 in the country, 13-year-old. You still have certain things that need to be worked on, and you could be a 16-year-old top 100 in the nation player. And so your training program and things we're going to focus on are going to be slightly different, but connected to the where you should be at by the level of your age range and what you need to do. So I really focus on those things, and I judge it based on the opportunity. I've had the chance to work with players. I've got to the top 10 in the world juniors, right? And I know I worked with that player who I can get to the top 10 juniors. I got them while they were 14, and they were probably rated 50 in the United States. And how I get a player who was rated 50 in the United States to number 1 in the United States in less than a year. And then from 300 in the world junior ITFs to number 8 in the world in less than a year and a half. So there's a certain work ethic, there's a certain level of commitment that you have to put in. So judging by that blueprint, I look at my players and individually saying, okay, this player is improving at a professional rate. This one is improving at probably a top 10 collegiate rate. This one is improving at a D1 school, top 50 rate, and so forth and so on. So it's unique. But at the same time, I'm fortunate. I believe that I have the eye to understand what level the player is and the map for the player to get to their goals.
To the goals, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so we'll go to the next. And you said about the parents. We're going to talk about the parents a little bit later. So the next thing I wanted to bring here is it's extremely difficult for a junior player, and even if they want to get in college, because college is not easy anymore.
Absolutely.
You don't get a scholarship if you're not really, really good. Or if you want to be a professional tennis player. Okay?
Absolutely.
The number one problem, like I see, it's money. I mean, it's extremely. It's a sport that you have to spend a lot of money. People don't understand that. Only how many strings, how many rackets you have to restring every week. It's amazing that. And how is there a way to deal with that, or only if you get to the top 5? Then you get
even if you get to the top 5. I'm very dear friends with players who've been number 1 in the country and are complaining that they didn't get a grant. That they spent X amount. I spent $100,000 to get my child only this year on a tennis budget, and I only received $2,500.
Yeah.
from the federation. So the sad part about it is that it is a costly sport. First, you have to consider the tennis balls, strings, equipment. Sometimes when you get to a certain level, it helps, right? You get Babolat to sponsor you. They sponsor your strings and your
Yeah, but
rackets, right?
is it really a sponsorship, or is it? I mean, they give you free stuff. That's what you mean, or
Yes,
do they pay?
they give you only the equipment. So that in its own right helps. You're looking at a potential, $5,000 to $10,000 expense
Cost,
that
yes.
it cost that has been cut because a company likes your top rated, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's a little bit, but it does help a tad bit. But you also have to look at the fiscal demands, like you said, the transportation to the tournaments. You're going to travel, the hotel expenses. There's so many things around to paying your coach. We can't afford a traveling coach, so the parent is going to travel with the child.
Yes.
And so if the parent is going to travel with the child, sadly, 90% of the parents never even played the game, right? So,
Yes.
and even if they did play the game, it doesn't mean they know how to coach. And
Mm-hmm.
they mean the best for their kids. So they say the right things at the wrong time.
Yes.
And then there is a chemistry explosion over there going on. The child doesn't want to hear anything from their parent. Their parent is
Mm-hmm.
frustrated. So there are so many intangibles that are going in developing an athlete, and the
Mm-hmm.
journey the parents are going through and learning
Yeah.
as they see their child develop.
You also need to have maybe a team if you're very serious. If you want to go professional, you have to have a trainer, you
Absolutely.
have to have a doctor, you have to have
Absolutely.
a masseur, you have to have a team of people to help you get there, or else the competition is too much.
Absolutely.
And let's say here that it's not enough, like, because some parents don't know that it's not enough to send your kid to three or four ITF tournaments and then stop for a year and then okay, we'll do it next year. Yeah, it's very,
Common.
you're laughing, but people don't understand that
Yeah.
like to become like great and to get a scholarship or to get a one ADP ranking point, okay, you have to do like years of like
Absolutely.
traveling
Absolutely.
and competing, or else there's
Absolutely.
no like.
Absolutely. I mean, I laugh in a way because you're underestimating what the costs, not
Mhm,
just financially, but we're talking about time spent, talking about the sacrifices you have to make to be able to get those junior ITF points, to be able to get an ATP point. And even the players that have spent 15 ITF tournaments in a year, you know, they've played 10 futures professional tournaments. I work with players like this, and I constantly have to remind their parents that it's a journey because
mhm,
they are still waiting for that big breakthrough. And I have to realize that, look, don't be a journeyman or a journeywoman. This is a process. If you're traveling to tournaments, it's not about your child winning the tournament. It's about your child being exposed in the right environment,
mhm,
working the correct ways in the right environment, and an opportunity when you're there, even if your child loses first round, if you want to exceed to the highest level, you gotta be the early bird, waking up, doing your
mhm,
alignment work, training, then play your match, win or lose, go back on the court, reassess what you didn't do, work again on that. Fortunately, at the tournament, all the people, over half of the people are losing first round. Now you have hitting partners. This is where the mentality should be, more than I sent you to this tournament. I spent a lot of money. Now I need to see the result. And
mhm,
this is where 90% of all the competitors fall, is they
mhm,
need the quick result because they did spend the big paycheck. Unfortunately, we're dealing with human beings, and people grow at different rates. But one thing that's for sure, they will grow if they're put in the correct environment for the correct amount of time for them, right? And the budgets may vary due to that fact, and it takes time, but it is costly. I agree with you, and there are ways that people are trying to save money, maybe traveling with a team, so you share expenses.
Yes.
Maybe federations, for example, saying we're going to host 6 or 8 professional 15K tournaments in a row so that people
Yes.
can be in one area. They don't have to spend 8 tickets going from one city to
Yes.
another. They're in one region. They rent a car and have one flight in and out and get a chance to play 8 tournaments. So it's a little bit different ways you're trying to save money. It's not as dreamy as when you see Novak Djokovic holding a trophy or Roger Federer holding a trophy. For every Roger Federer or Novak, there is 15,000 stories of guys who tried and
I didn't make it.
didn't make it, and
Yeah.
they bankrupted themselves trying to become the next Federer. Yeah.
When is you said earlier, and I got this. You said earlier that it doesn't matter if you lose. It matters if you stay focused on your path or your map or your future, and think about what you did wrong, and make it better next time.
Sorry.
When is time? When is the time that it actually matters? At one point, you have to start winning.
I would say results come when you have done the right things. Easier said than done. This could take 3 years. This can take 4 years, but you have to have the patience. And you also have to be around knowledgeable, caring people who know what's going on and understand what it takes to become good. Sadly, there's not enough seasoned professionals coaching players, or if they are not dedicated enough to commit to that athlete to take it to the next level. It's a two-way street.
Yes.
I work 12 to 14 hours a day straight. I don't have lunch. I only have breakfast if I'm lucky. I have dinner late after I've put the kids to sleep. And whoever is coaching, I'm coaching between 12 and 2 is going to bring me some lunch, which I'm snacking while I'm coaching. But the reason why I have so many people working with me, I'd like to say, and and sadly I can't coach everybody, but many people who I can't work with, is energy doesn't lie. Parents, and kids know someone who's committed to them and who's not. I'm fortunate enough to develop players who were nobody knew about. The next thing they're talking about. Did you see that player? She's now got to the semifinals of the professional event. 2 years ago, you didn't even know she played even junior tournaments, right?
Yes.
So it's an eye opener, and if then it gives people a chance to say, if she could do it, I could do it. So I'm able to attract that type of business. And when I attract that type of business, I'm able to retain my clients because I try to be as transparent as possible. I also understand that you have to be somehow delusional if you have big dreams, but you're only delusional if you're not willing to match the energy that dream requires. So with that in mind, the player who is being coached senses how committed their coaching staff is, or their parents are to them. And the goal is to, when you know a player is going to be really good, is when you can give them everything you have to become as good as they can in this set amount of time, but their standard for themselves is higher than the one you gave them. Then you know, okay, this person is special. Not because they're winning today, simply because if
Yes.
they can keep up that mindset, and knowing what I know coaching you, if you keep up with this type of work, at some point, something will give. that winning will come because you're just better. So that's
It's very tough, though, man. It's very tough to be a parent and to spend all this money,
absolutely.
especially if you don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not even talking about 1 or 2 years or 3 or 4 years. I'm talking about like 2 months, 3 months. You go to
Oh,
tournaments for 2, 3 months, and
yeah.
your kid
Absolutely.
is losing
Absolutely.
first round every. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very difficult to stay
Absolutely.
focused and continue.
Absolutely.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing I try to console parents, it's not easy, it's never going to be easy, is try to look at it from a different position. Yes, I'm spending quite a lot of money on my child to travel, to play these tournaments and so forth. But it's a big investment because you're keeping your child out of trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Your child is not being idle. Your child is actually pursuing a goal. Your child is facing competition, is stressed, and is losing every weekend and cries and comes back trying to get better. That's a better challenge to have than having a child sitting in a room playing computer games all day, not
Mm-hmm.
being attended to, being vulnerable to different things outside the society. And
Mm-hmm.
that investment in the long run is going to build, if your child doesn't become a tennis player or a professional tennis player, you're going to build a good citizen, a child who's going to have life skills and who's going to be able to cater for themselves and cater for other people. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's difficult. There's nothing easy, but the price you pay is expensive, but it's more expensive not to pay it in the future.
I see.
So,
Yeah.
I try to keep that perspective in tune, that look at it from a position that your child has got high expectations of themselves. They're going to work hard, but you're investing in them to really build life skills that if they win, great. If they don't win, what did they learn? And if you can focus on that pattern, at some point they will win, to be honest.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Zibu. Next question. So you at your place of work, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have a tennis court,
Yes.
which you decided not only to be a clay court,
Mm-hmm.
but also to be a red clay court.
Mm-hmm.
Something we don't see often. I mean, I don't know over there in California, but
Mm-hmm.
around Washington D.C., I only saw one place that had red clay. Okay,
Okay.
there's probably more, but
Mm-hmm.
why did you decide to you're gonna build one court? I mean, why I'm asking? I'm asking because there is maintenance. It's more
Yes.
expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, it's difficult to maintain. The
Mm-hmm.
weather can destroy it. But why did you choose that court? Was
Uh,
it because you
yeah.
feel like you can do better job coaching juniors in the clay court?
Well, for many reasons. I was fortunate enough back in 2009, I believe, 2009. Uh, I moved to Spain. So I lived in Spain from 2009 to 2012. So while I was in Spain, I worked with um, some great coaches. I was at Sanchez Casal. I worked a lot
Mm-hmm.
with Emilio Sanchez, but mainly his mentor, the godfather of tennis, Pato Alvarez, and many
Mm-hmm.
other really good Argentinian and Spanish coaches when I was in Spain. And I realized one pattern. And why is it that 90% of all the top 10 players come from clay?
Mm-hmm.
There's something going on here. And, in discussions with, these guru coaches from Spain, and we're talking about people who've had numerous world number one players, numerous top 100 players for decades in, decades out, and watching the current flock, the last current flock of players, Batista Agutes and so forth, training before nobody knew them. And you're seeing them training on clay, and the world is surprised to see these guys on there. But I was seeing these guys when a college in the United States would not even have thought about recruiting this player. And next thing you're seeing that guy in the top 10 ATP, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something magical is happening here. What is the case? First, what I did realize is that they have a slightly different culture and approach and work ethic. Second is the surface that they're competing in is rigorous in terms of you have to work more. but it's softer for the joints. In tennis, you're changing direction. It's softer on the ankles and the knees and the shoulders. So you get a chance to train more than normal. And one thing about clay is you have to move well. If you cannot move well and move correctly, the surface is going to put you in your place. On a hard court, if the ball is struck to you, you can actually wait for it. It'll bounce from 20 feet away from you. It'll get to you into your strike zone. On a clay court, if you hit the ball 20 feet away from somebody, they have to move to that ball to be at least 8 to 6 feet from where that ball bounced to have an opportunity to hit a quality ball. And I would watch Roger Federer, you and I, and the rest of our groups would see Roger Federer torment these Americans, hitting a short slice cross-court angle. These guys would run, and then he would just open and hit an easy ball. But why couldn't he do that against guys like Andy Murray, who were training in Spain? Why couldn't he do that against the Spanish guys? Why couldn't he do that against Nadal? Because when he sliced the ball, those guys moved to the ball to hit it. So that short slice, they punished Federer for. But when Federer played the top American players, that was just short slice, easy shot, short slice, easy shot when he needed the point. So it had to attribute to movement. And the American players are great, but they have big serves and they have big forehands.
Big forehands. That's amazing. Every American player has the same style of play.
Style of play, which concerned me a little bit because, there were certain players who were 5'8", or 5'7", and they would be taught to hit a big serve and big forehand like Andy Roddick, and they blow their shoulder. And I'm talking about players who were easily top 2 in the country at a certain time. And they would have been professionals players today if they grew up in Spain, if they grew up in Argentina, because the philosophy was, let's improve your movement. You can be Del Potro, 6'5" or 6'6", and be top 10 in the world. You also can be Schwartzman, 5'6", and be top 10 in the world. There is inclusion in a system that develops movement before it develops physical attributes of height and strength. So it was no brainer to me because it wasn't even just the stats. Stats are great, but more than stats, it's sensation. At the end of the day, when you play a match, you are going to compete and you are winning or losing the match based on what your opponent makes you feel like, not based on your stats. Yesterday's home runs are not winning today's matches. If Federer was playing Nadal, Federer was not beating Nadal based on what Nadal could make Roger Federer feel. He would make Federer struggle with his backhand. When Federer played anybody else, his backhand was superb. But against Nadal, it wasn't so good. So how did Nadal make Federer not get comfortable hitting a shot he could hit against everybody else in the world? This was more important. It was how Nadal moves, how Nadal positions himself, how he can take away certain strengths. And if Federer had to beat Nadal, he had to also move a certain way to take time away from Nadal. So clay is the ultimate surface that saves my voice because I'm tired of yelling at these kids. Move your feet, move your feet. The ball bounces, it comes to them, they make the shot, and they're like, I didn't move my feet and I still made the shot. So you've justified why they should not move their feet. But if you put them on the clay, if they don't move their feet, they are off balance. And they're not arriving close to the ball. And then when they go to hard court, with these new skills, how they moved on clay, they don't even need to practice on hard court. They just play on clay, move on to hard court, and go perform well on a hard court. So clay clearly was a surface that I invested in because I had the opportunity to study under that surface for a good 6 years. I grew up in Zimbabwe. It's high altitude. We serve at volley. We don't hit ground strokes. We don't believe in clay court. Then I move and I learn about clay in my mid-20s, and I realized why the best players in the world grew up on that surface. And from then on, I've always been about growing and about learning. And I took it upon myself to at some point invest and purchase land where I could build a court or have a clay court. And it was a dream of mine, and it took a good 4 years from the time I left Spain before I was able to accomplish that.
Nice, good job. No, that's
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Also, I think clay is for not only for the high performance players, but in the younger age, because it's slower. Do you think it's like easier? Like when you first learn
Yeah.
tennis, the slower court is easier to fix your technique and
Uh,
also to fight on the court more,
yes.
because
It's it.
it's not that easy to hit winners all the time. Okay, so you actually have to work first of all to harder to play defense and then to stay in the rally longer than you do in the hard court, and your fighting
Yes.
spirit gets
Yes.
better.
Yes. I think you know, instead of having a green dot ball, orange dot, red dot, whatever the case is, to build longer rallies for kids so that they can have fun. I do believe clay is a surface that forces you to construct a point.
Yes, exactly.
If you are not looking at constructing the point, grass court and hard courts are the ultimate weapon surfaces. When
Especially the grass court.
especially that grass court,
you,
knee downs
you
and
can win. You can win a grand. I mean, you used to, not anymore, but you
no,
used to be able to win a Wimbledon with just a serve or be
absolutely,
competitive
absolutely.
in Wimbledon.
Very true. And things have changed now. Athletes
No, yeah,
have
it's
got
different.
stronger, and
Yes,
those the same people who win Roland Garros are the same people winning Wimbledon. So
that's true.
things it's eye opening, and the sport has changed in those dynamics. And again, that's the reason why I would say there's a huge talk about first strike tennis. The average ball is being hit in less than 4 shots, and you need to build these weapons: a big serve, big forehand, and end the point within 3 or 4 shots. And if you can do that, you could be like a professional. The
Yeah.
reality, sadly, is that stat is true, but that's not how the best players trained to get there. The best players are able to hit one shot 50 times in a row anywhere on the court. So
Yes.
when they go for a shot at an aggressive rate, they can make those 4 balls that they cannot be returned. And unfortunately, you have these kids who think they're going to swing as hard as they can, and one day they'll miraculously make those 4 balls, which is you have not even worked any base on making the shot or constructing the shot. And that's why, you said, eventually the players who are playing a lot on hard court, it's very difficult for them to build their game to the professional level because they never learned to build or construct a point from ground up.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Zibu. All right. And I think we are about in the end of this podcast. I want to keep it in a certain amount. Of course, we can talk here for hours,
Forever,
man.
for
So I
sure.
mean, you have to come back. You have to come back because I have double the
The
questions
questions.
I originally had. Um, uh, Two quick questions. What, and we don't have to talk about it too much, but it's important to do one-on-one, right? Coach one ratio
Yes.
with a player. And what is the most you can have on the court? Is it 3, like they do
I'd
in
say,
Spain? I think
I'd
you.
say the max I have in one court is 4.
Okay.
Ideally, I like to give private lessons, 4 hours of private lessons per student to 2 hours private lessons per student a week. I like a group of 2 to 1, where they do a lot of 2 to 1s. 2 people can always control that one person to fight a little bit harder and
Exactly. Yeah.
rotate. Sometimes you want to have 4 on the court where you have 2 going at each other individually. When they take a circuit break, you put in the others. So the one player gets a chance to play against 3 different styles of tennis, different types of players in a span of 3 hours. So you get a sense of if you want to go deep in tournaments, you are not going to play one style of player. So you have to be able to keep adjusting as the tournament goes from one
Yes,
playing style to the other. I wouldn't put,
depending on your opponent.
yeah, 4 is the maximum I'll put on the court.
Okay.
Ideally, I like the 2-to-1s.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Your opinion, I'm going to ask this. I decided to ask this to everybody. Your opinion about pickleball? Fastest growing sport in America.
I'm a dinosaur to pickleball for now. I haven't picked up a pickleball racket. I'm too loyal to tennis. I've had friends who played paddle
Yes.
and are doing well. They're super, champions in tennis, and they can make a living being paddle coaches. I have some who have now joined the wagon of pickleball. I've been asked to play pickleball, come watch pickleball. I've still yet to go watch a pickleball match. I'm just loyal to tennis. And I would say I will, when I'm ready to retire in tennis, that's the day I go die at pickleball. But I still think pickleball is somewhat of a great sport in terms of it has made a game easy for people to socialize, which tennis has not been able to. As we spoke about how things, it's tough with tennis. Parents paying a lot of money for lessons and so forth. So pickleball has been available for 5 people, 10 people can show up and have a great time and socialize.
Yes.
And that's one thing that the world of tennis has failed to bring to the table.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Zibu, thank you so much. I'm so happy that we talked today. That was a nice conversation. I felt I was like just talking to you. I didn't feel the cameras or anything. It was awesome.
I forgot. I thought we were in a FaceTime chat here for a second. That's why our conversations were extended. But thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure to discuss tennis with you. But more important, it's always good to hear a friend's voice.
Yes, exactly. And I will see you for sure. I want you back in a few months. So let's see how this goes.
Absolutely.
And we get you back here with more content.
Sounds good. And best of luck with this. And I'll be following up on this. This is a huge deal. And congratulations in the idea and the vision. And I keep believing in it. I was the first in it. It can only get better from now.
I'm okay waiting. I'm okay waiting 3-4 years, like a tennis player does.
Absolutely.
I'm okay. I like it because this is something I like. If it doesn't go well, if 5 people just yes, that's it. That's okay.
It's okay.
I gave there's opinions for 5 people.
And believe me, you're going to have opinions for a lot more people. You're sending a message and giving great content. And last but not least, I want to thank everybody who has been involved in my development, in making us, including Anthony, who have been a big part in our development and who've mentored us, who've given us examples. We want to thank you all, coaches at Tyler and mentors past that, and development coaches and so forth and so on. It's the game of tennis is a huge blessing, and it's created a community like none other.
Exactly. Thank you, Zibu.
You're very welcome, and thanks again.
And everybody, if you guys enjoyed it, you can like and subscribe down and leave a comment for more questions for next time that Zibu comes. He already committed he's going to come back to ask him.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.
Cheers.
Be well.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.